No one noticed the man when he stepped off the train at Union Station on a cold February morning in 1933. That was the first mistake. He wore an ordinary gray coat, the kind thousands of men wore during the Great Depression. His shoes were worn but clean. His hat was pulled low, not to hide his face, but to avoid attention. He carried no suitcase, only a thin leather folder tucked under his arm. Inside that folder was information powerful enough to reshape the future of the United States and possibly destroy it. At that moment, America was a nation on the brink. Banks were collapsing. Bread lines stretched for miles. 1 in 4 men had no job. Franklin Roosevelt had not yet been sworn in, and the country was desperate. So desperate that it was willing to listen to anyone who promised stability, even if that stability came at a terrible price. The man's name was Smedley Darlington Butler. Most Americans had never heard of him, but every foreign government, every major corporation, and every military intelligence agency knew exactly who he was. He was the most decorated Marine in U.S. history, and he had just uncovered a conspiracy, one that involved Wall Street elites, industrial tycoons, and a plan to overthrow the President of the United States. This is not a legend. This is not speculation. This happened. The making of an American war machine. Smedley Butler was born in 1881 into privilege. His family was wealthy, politically connected, and deeply patriotic. At just 16 years old, he lied about his age to join the Marines, driven by a romantic belief in honor, duty, and country. He would spend the next 33 years fighting America's wars, but not the wars Americans were taught in school. Butler fought in China, Nicaragua, Honduras, Mexico, Haiti, Cuba, and the Philippines, long before most Americans could find those places on a map. These were not wars of defense. They were wars of corporate interest disguised as patriotism. Years later, Butler would write, "I was a racketeer for capitalism." At the time, he didn't realize it, or perhaps he didn't want to. Each campaign followed the same pattern. American corporations wanted resources. Local governments resisted. The Marines were deployed. Resistance was crushed. Profits flowed north. Sugar companies, oil giants, banking interests. The American flag followed money, and Smedley Butler was one of its sharpest weapons. The war America forgot. Haiti. In 1915, Butler led Marines into Haiti. The official reason was stability. The real reason was control of the Haitian central bank. Within days of landing, American forces seized the country's gold reserves and shipped them to New York. Haitians resisted. They were labeled bandits. Butler hunted them relentlessly. Years later, haunted by what he had done, he admitted, "I helped make Haiti a decent place for the National Citibank boys to collect revenues." It was the first crack in his belief system, but not the last. A hero returns home. By the late 1920s, Butler was a national hero. 2 medals of honor, admired by soldiers, trusted by the public. His speeches attracted thousands. And then he did something unforgivable. He told the truth. He began speaking openly about how American wars were fought not for freedom, but for profit. He condemned Wall Street. He criticized corporations. He warned that democracy itself was in danger. At the height of the Great Depression, his words spread like wildfire, and powerful men noticed. The approach. In the summer of 1933, Butler received a strange visit. The man's name was Gerald C. McGuire, a bond salesman with ties to elite financial circles. At first, the conversation seemed harmless. concern about veterans, about the bonus army that had been violently dispersed from Washington the year before. Then, McGuire made the real proposal. He spoke of a new organization, one funded by wealthy industrialists, one that wanted to save America from chaos. They needed a leader, someone respected by soldiers, someone who could command loyalty from hundreds of thousands of veterans. They wanted Smedley Butler to lead a private army of 500,000 men. Their goal? To march on Washington, to force President Roosevelt into a ceremonial role and install a government run by businessmen, a fascist regime modeled after Mussolini's Italy in America. Butler's choice. Butler did not react with outrage. He did not shout. He did not threaten. He listened. He asked questions. He pretended to be interested. Because Butler understood something crucial. If this was real, and he suspected it was, then exposing it incorrectly could get him killed. So he played along, and while he did, he began collecting evidence, names, meetings, funding sources. Some of the richest families in America were involved, men whose companies still exist today. The silence of history. In 1934, Butler testified under oath before a congressional committee. He named names. He described the plot in detail. The committee concluded that the conspiracy was real. No one was prosecuted. The newspapers downplayed it. History books barely mentioned it. America moved on. But the lesson remained buried. Democracy is not overthrown in one dramatic moment. It is negotiated away, quietly, by men in suits who believe they know better than the people.